Coming up on today's wrestling news, Tony Khan pulls scandalous surprise on AEW Dynamite.
We've got an update on WWE piping in crowd noises.
WWE's parent company Endeavour could be selling some shares.
And WWE Goes International.
I'm Michael from WhatCulture.
And I'm Phil from WhatCulture.
And this is the E-Team
News.
I love
it's the team everybody wants.
You know what, as well, we should have done Je m'appelle Michael from WhatCulture.
Hey.
I don't know the German one. But yeah, we're us two anyway.
Guten Tag.
Yeah, Guten Tag. Good morning and hello. These are the Eurovision scores from England, and this is the wrestling news from WhatCulture. And that was very light-hearted, which doesn't give much of a pivot point to talk about this guy, who was Tony Khan's scandalous surprise on AEW Dynamite last night. Ric Flair arrived as Sting's gift. Tony Khan had said, following Sting's announcement that he was going to retire at Revolution next year, that he had a gift for the Stinger, and it was indeed the Nature Boy himself.
He said he didn't come out of like a big present box thing.
No, like
or a cake. That would have been quite good.
Both of those go against wrestling tradition, don't they? That people just emerge out of boxes and cakes. But it was indeed Ric Flair emerging, I guess, from the shadows of his relative absence from pro wrestling. He had his
emerging from the dark side of the ring.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. He had his last match last year, of course, with Andrade, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal, who are also under the AEW umbrella. He made an appearance to sort of share the ring, hug, and like sort of reminisce with Sting and Tony Schiavone. Darby Allin was also there as well. This led to a segment where Christian Cage and Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne came out. There was back and forth. There was all to set up a 6-man tag that will probably feature Adam Copeland at the next pay-per-view or beyond that. But I guess the fiction is maybe not the conversation so much as the facts. Ric Flair's plane ride from hell allegations that were kind of reframed in that dark side of the ring era that you mentioned in 2021. Took something that had always been treated as quite a jokey situation of a bunch of wrestlers getting drunk on a plane into some very real sexual assault allegations, and this kind of brought into focus a lot of the stories that had been told about Ric Flair in the past, and maybe other people kind of asking a lot of those stories to be perhaps retold from the perspective of the victims rather than the man himself, and all the fame and fortune that came with being Ric Flair for 30-40 years. I guess that's why, we can talk about this in scandalous terms. Tony Khan has only recently, for balance, I guess, made reference to the allegations against Vince McMahon in various posts on X. He took quite a hard line on Hulk Hogan's lack of presence in AEW. Obviously very different controversies attached to Hogan, but controversies nonetheless. And this is another one of them cases. It's tricky here because I think there will be some wrestling fans that are always capable of just separating all fiction from all facts, and look, you can apply this to a lot of wrestlers, and some will do that with Ric Flair. Equally, there will be some where there can be no separation and will simply watch this segment and not be able to concentrate on any of the storylines, on any of the promos without going, that's Ric Flair. Yeah. I don't feel very good. And for what it's worth, obviously since 2021, I don't believe Ric Flair has appeared in a prominent role on WWE television since this Dark Side Ring airing, nor has he appeared in AEW, with most of those delays being rumoured to be due directly to how his name was kind of maybe not held in such reverie and esteem in the industry. So all of this backlash, I would say, was to be expected. They would have been foolish to not assume there would be all of these multiple takes flying around. We're not telling you what to think about Ric Flair being on Dynamite.
You can do that in the comments down below.
And I'm sure lots of people will. But I think to not assume some controversy and some blowback and all of these opinions to fly around would have been naive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest part of this, like you say, is Tony Khan's taken a hard line on some of these things in the past. Like he's been outspoken about the Vince McMahon thing, and it's specifically the Hogan stuff. Mm-hmm. But also, he's done this with Flair in the past. There were the rumours that he was going to come back sort of around, to either manage Andrade or do something along those lines. And then the Dark Side of the Ring episodes hit, and then he cut it all off and sort of cut ties. Nothing was sort of public at that point. It was all sort of rumours. But he'd done this in the past, and then kind of waited for everything to die down a little bit before then bringing him back. He's wanted to do this for a while, so it feels like he can separate the sort of facts from the artists. And he has done here. But yeah, it's a difficult one, and it will be completely up to you as to what you think around this. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just gonna, like you say, it's a little bit scandalous. It's just gonna cause people to have these conversations online, which is probably not the discourse you want around AEW at the minute.
No, it's never ideal when you can't. Well, like anything like this breaks the immersion. There have been recent other examples in AEW and WWE. You know, it's wrestling ultimately. It's not the best for this, but you never really want things that are going on in the real conversation to deflect from what you're trying to create as storylines and as things like that. But it's perhaps better that they do. I think there was probably a time when everyone would have buried their head in the sand over everything, and it's better that we have these conversations. And look, there can be disagreements, and there can be, like, everyone has their own moral code and ethical lines, and again, we try not to tell you what to preach. I'm sure you think we do anyway, but like everybody will just take a stance, and I think that's a good thing. But I do believe that you welcome a lot of this on when you invite these controversial figures. Like, this is absolutely not a tribal thing or a culture war or anything like that. Every wrestling company has done this when it comes to the bottom line, when it comes to, as you say, like, waiting for the backlash to subside. People will take these chances. We will see as well. Like, it didn't feel on Dynamite like this was a one-off for Ric Flair. This felt like this would, you know, you would assume maybe other legends will come in as part of Sting's, like people that have factored heavily into Sting's history will now feature in his story. You know, this one kind of mirrors a little bit Ric Flair's own retirement when he had to, you know, win or retire back in 2007, 2008. So there could be more of this to come, I guess. Things shared the ring with a fair few dicey figures. You know, he named
Wrestling has a past.
He named Hulk Hogan, didn't he, last week?
Yeah.
And got booed in the building. That was probably one of Hogan's only mentions in AEW history. So we'll see, I guess, how this plays out in the weeks to come. Right now, it's certainly a hot button, and we do welcome your conversation in good faith. Be nice to each other, but we welcome that conversation.
Try and keep it nice.
Yeah, below the line.
Indeed. But speaking of booze, that's a segue, right? That's
the good kind, we think.
The good kind, possibly. So we've got an update on basically WWE piping in crowd reactions for Dominic Mysterio. Now this is coming from Sean Mussap over on Twitter. So he put out a tweet during Raw just saying, the piped in boos are really bad tonight. Just rely on Dominic and Logan to get the reactions. They can do it. They're playing the exact same audio repeatedly. And then he got quote tweeted by a fan just saying, laugh my ass off. As somebody who is in the live audience, they are definitely not piped in, fam. I love the word fam. But then Sean Mussap quote tweeted this, and this is the more interesting one. As someone who just asked someone who works there and has ears and can hear the same loop sound, yes, they are. So I think this is the first time we're getting direct confirmation from someone within WWE that they are indeed piping in crowd reactions for Dominic. Now, personally, I don't care. I think it's quite fun. WWE do so many other things to enhance the entertainment factor of it, of sports entertainment. They're like the video packages, the sort of production on its own. Like everything about the WWE package is sort of creating that kind of atmosphere, that kind of moments.
Yeah.
And if they're just doing this to add in a bit of fun, obviously they're still getting the crowd reactions themselves. If they were getting like silent crowd reactions, and they were still doing this, that would be another matter. But to just enhance something that's already happened to make it funny, I don't really care.
Yeah, I think this is a weird debate. It plays out once a week now.
Yeah.
Like every time Dominic comes out, especially, it plays out once a week. I think it's a very strange debate, specifically around Dominic Mysterio and the boots. Like wrestling, not just WWE, wrestling has piped in noise forever.
Yeah.
And it has done it in far more egregious ways than what we're seeing with Dominic. I think you're right. I think with Dominic Mysterio, like he's a guy that gets heat to the point where this debate happens. If he wasn't getting booed, there would be no argument. There would be people in the building saying, it was silent in my section, so what you're hearing on television
and
is
that would
fake
be a very different thing.
Exactly. Like, if anything, the boos here that get piped in appear to have contributed to something that fans want to engage with themselves when they get there.
Yeah.
That is the same kind of enhancement of a fan experience as pushing a wrestler as a babyface by winning matches.
Let's not forget when Seth Rollins was building up his they did exactly the same thing in order to actually get the crowd singing. Like, was it WrestleMania that we were at?
Yeah,
like it was really blatant in the arena.
You know?
They were piping that noise in order to get the crowd going.
Like WWE are rampant hypocrites, of course, as always. Like as far back as 1998, 99, when they introduced Gilbert, they mocked WCW for doing the Goldberg piping in. going all the way back even further. They replayed the 1992 Royal Rumble to where Sid tips out Hulk Hogan and then just switched the boos and cheers around because people were genuinely happy that Hogan had been eliminated. So when you watch that show, you hear the cheers for Sid, you see the hands going up in the air, but then when you watch it back on TV weeks later, Sid was positioned as the heel. This is something that wrestling has done over and over again. I'm personally a fan of it when used for good like this, less so when the SmackDown hairdryer goes on, when you get the "this is awesome" for matches that are evidently not awesome. There are just, like, as my esteemed colleague Michael Sidgwick says on WhatCulture podcasts all the time, you can get them wherever you subscribe, and indeed on YouTube. There are good and bad versions of everything in wrestling. I genuinely believe this is something they leaned on in the pandemic and have tried to apply for the betterment of one character. It's not great all the time, but I think if you're arguing about it around Dominic Mysterio, you're probably having the wrong fight.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think like the pandemic thing is the biggest part of this because I think they really like practiced and tried with that kind of thing during the pandemic, and it gave them freedom to experiment with this kind of thing, which is how they've kind of not perfected it, like Sean Mossap says, like using the same sound over and over again.
It's annoying.
It is a little bit annoying, and you can definitely get different reactions and mix that up. So there's still things they could do better, obviously, but it's allowed them to experiment more with this kind of production style, and they're running with it, and it's what they do, and I think it's kind of funny.
I think if whatever you're doing is convincing people to buy tickets and the numbers that WWE are currently generating, you are doing something right.
Still react in the building.
Yeah.
You're not masking something, you're enhancing something.
Yeah. However, speaking of enhancing, Phil, you're the tech whiz here at WhatCulture. You might need to add some sort of fake fan enthusiasm to our comment section as I read this story, because it's a bit of business about this business, but I am going to read from my phone because I do not want to get the facts wrong. WWE's parent company, Endeavour, might be selling shares, potentially big. WWE are likely to go unaffected by all this, less so. Endeavour are the parent company of both WWE and UFC, now under the TKO branding. You know, you had all that stuff on Wall Street a little while ago. And Ari Emanuel, the man that's recently put Vince McMahon hilariously back in his box, has stated in a press release yesterday that the organisation will be exploring, quote, strategic alternatives, but will not be selling stakes in TKO, which should mean that WWE goes largely unaffected by all of this. In the release, he says, quote, given the continued dislocation between Endeavour's public market value and the intrinsic value of Endeavour's underlying assets, we believe an evaluation of strategic alternatives is a prudent approach to ensure we are maximising value for our shareholders. As part of the review of this strategic alternatives, the company will not consider the sale or disposition of the company's interest to TKO Group's Holding Incorporated. Silver Lake, the parent company of Endeavour, will not sell shares to a third party, and they added, quote, Silver Lake firmly believes in Endeavour's businesses and is not interested in selling its shares in Endeavour to a third party nor entertaining bids for assets that are part of Endeavour. Clear, Phil?
Yeah, crystal, business. I guess.
WhatCulture.com.
All I've got to say is Ari Emanuel's thing of like using Vince McMahon and his position in the company to like get him back within the company in order to enable a sale of the company in order to just like get rid of him slightly again. It's a pretty baller move.
Like all of these people at the top, there are no babyface billionaires. They are all awful, but it's great when they turn it on each other. It's funny. It's funny stuff.
But anyway, if you haven't turned off yet, let's just move over to the next thing.
Thanks, guys.
Because WWE is going international again. So you've probably seen, I'm doing the rounds on social media and everything, Bash in Berlin has been announced for August 31st, 2024 in the Mercedes-Benz Arena, obviously in Berlin. But this isn't the only like international show that WWE is kind of planning on next year. Now, obviously, they've already got the Elimination Chamber in Perth, Australia, in February. Thanks. I thought that was pretty good. But there are also internal schedules that list Backlash as coming from Paris, of all places. Now, this is yet to be confirmed, but has been discussed heavily. So that could still happen. And then obviously you've got the Saudi shows on top of that. So WWE really going all in. Get it? Because that was in London and not in America.
Berlin suspiciously close to 2024.
On the international shows.
Look, right, I think there's a lot of chat to be had specifically about this Berlin show in where it sits in the pro wrestling calendar and what a nice power play that is to target mainland Europe when they know that a lot of mainland Europe travel to Wembley. I say that while acknowledging that's pretty shrewd competitive business, gamesmanship. Like they've done snider things in terms of counter programming television than simply booking an event in a place of Europe saying, you've got that product, or try ours. Like, I kind of don't have any problem with that. I say this all the time whenever we talk about these B shows. I kind of love, like, it's corporate synergy, so it's gross to like fetishize it and romanticize it.
Yeah.
But I kind of love Nick Khan wanting to have meetings with various business partners and TV executives in different parts of America and the world, and syncing up with Triple H's booking so that all of these B shows take place in cool places where you can have localized talent have big nights. This goes all the way back to one that we were at in September of 2022 when Clash at the Castle in Cardiff featured Cardiff's own Drew McIntyre competing for the Universe Champ. I joke, but he was positioned as the British hero. It was supposed to be a reference to Bulldog main event and all that kind of thing. From there, we went to Sami Zayn in Montreal. Mm-hmm. From there, we went to Backlash in Puerto Rico with Damien Priest and Bad Bunny and Zelina Vega.
Yeah.
We now have the Australia event in Perth in Australia. Presumably with Rhea Ripley. Sadly not with Emma and potentially Grayson Waller. We'll go to Berlin and we'll maybe we'll touch on that a little bit in the questions. But Paris as well. This is really, really smart, and I say that mostly as a fan because the shows have banged as a result. The crowds are so hot, they're so into it. Yep. The stories are so much more unique for these hometown or home nation or even close to home nation figures being pushed for the benefit of the shows being hotter. It's kind of gross corporate synergy where the business gets to win, but when the business creates a product that we enjoy, I'm on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing. Like, every single one of these has been really, really enjoyable. Yeah. Like, the crowds, like you say, like the Backlash specifically, when they just sort of stripped everything back to maximize the amount of butts they could get in seats in that building. And the reactions were absolutely incredible. And it, like, gave people like Damien Priest and Zelina Vega especially, like, a huge boost. Like, Zelina Vega's kind of been, like, maybe tippling off a little bit in the storylines now, but, like, kind of rode that way for quite a long time.
It was the biggest night of her career, wasn't it?
Well, it was the biggest night of her career, but it wasn't just that event as well. It continued on after that. So yeah, I think it's just really exciting, and I think it just mixes things up. They've got plenty of goddamn PLEs that they can have in America, and have done like forever and ever and ever. So why not explore these other places that are going to give you hot crowds, that are going to give you full buildings, and going to give these stars reactions like they'll not get anywhere else in the world.
I quite like the idea of John Cena rocking up like he did at Money in the Bank and just basically name-checking WrestleMania as a way to neg international governments into paying for a wrestling show like he did here. I'd like my tax to sort some other things out. WrestleMania in the UK can wait. The taxpayer's going to have to cover it.
More than that money can go.
Let's stick on the subject as we enter the questions. Thank you very much for the questions in the YouTube community. You can leave them there. There's a thread that goes out. It's there all week, leading questions. And we've got one first coming from at Karen Mauer 4910. I apologise for butchering your username there. Good morning, legends. They mean Murray and Wilborn.
Yeah, I'm going to choose to believe
we'll take legends.
They're thinking of.
Yeah. With WWE announcing the PLE in Berlin, where would your dream country / city be to go elsewhere? Also, do you see Ilya and Gunther being in the main event of that PLE?
Hello. You and Gunther in the main event of that would be
against each
perfect.
They could both feature, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. They would be foolish not to, surely, with the history that they've got, and they know that they will put on an absolute banger.
Like the WXW shows, like those years of sort of like legacy bouts they've had against like each other and others on cards.
And then for both of them to come and main event a pay-per-view in Berlin, that'd be absolutely amazing.
Gunther Cody for the belt in Berlin is absolutely red hot. Where would you choose a show to be, either for selfish reasons or
selfish reasons? Just Newcastle, just because it's easy.
Yeah.
It's really easy. We can go home afterwards, which is rare.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We've got 2
But I guess it depends if we can convince the bosses to send us there.
Yes, and you're kind of at the front of all that, isn't it? So it's you having like sort of very, I don't know, like well-worded emails to get us on flights to more audacious places.
Maybe. So yeah, I don't know where I'd want them to go. I'd like to go back to Toronto. It's been a while, but it needs to be quite a big event, I think. Where else? Somewhere. I don't know. If the bosses will send us to Japan to go watch WWE, that'd be. Do you know what? That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, like you took the words out of my mouth there. WWE in Japan is fascinating to me because I would love to go to Wrestle Kingdom, to go to Wrestle Kingdom, to go to the Tokyo Dome, to experience New Japan. Like, I've been to New Japan shows before, but never in Japan. And like, you've had that real life experience
in Korakuen Hall.
Korakuen Hall.
I mean, it was a World Tag Championship League tag league thing. So look, it wasn't the best New Japan show I've ever been to. Like,
but that is.
But it was in Korakuen Hall, and it was really. cool. I mean,
one of them venues.
Flipping cool.
WWE doing it. I kind of just want to look at it. They've had like select big events in Japan. They did the Beast in the East, remember that time? They've done the odd Raw taping like many moons ago. And it always takes me back to, I think it was a Bruce Pritchard podcast that said that when they went to Japan, like in the very like early 90s, even like around that time, the idea was not to necessarily put on a co-promoted show or make it look like a New Japan or an All Japan or whatever.
Yeah.
It was to see Dafed, like, but in Japan, like, just get that audience reaction. And I think that would be kind of amazing. I know that's a very like Americanized pro wrestling take, just like, hey, you know the big brand, you know what I want to eat when I go to Japan? McDonald's. But like, I don't know, like there is something unique about that setting that they've still, considering that it's the World Wrestling Entertainment brand, they've still never really done too much with it.
And considering the like talent that they have now, and the way that they would be booking these shows is very different to how they did the Beast in the East.
Absolutely,
that was just like a one-off like network special that was like kind of forgotten about, but was there. And then this would probably be an actual premium live event for the month, and you'd got Shinsuke and Asuka and Io. And it'd be, I think it'd be positioned a lot better than that was.
I think so. I think you're right.
Now.
But I'm with you. If like work will put us on a plane, I'll go frigging anywhere. You've seen it. I'll go absolutely. You can drag me there kicking and screaming, and there's absolutely no kicking. There's only screaming. This next question comes from @RobertSmith _WTAQU. I'm gonna think that you're a Kyo fan, even if you're not. But
I'm gonna think it's actually Robert Smith.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Robert. Thanks for watching. I love your band.
Me too.
Or if
big
it's just
hair inspiration.
Yeah, I wish I could get Robert Smith's hair. Speaking of big things, though, Phil, who do you think is bigger than Powerhouse Hobbs for Chris Jericho? Robert Smith says, Goldberg! Last night, for those that didn't see on Dynamite, Chris Jericho was interviewed by Renee Paquette following getting his ass handed to him by Powerhouse Hobbs 2 weeks ago. In that interview, he said that he was kind of questioning if he could move forward in his career after taking the worst beating of his life, but he's got a few friends of his own, and some of them are bigger than Powerhouse Hobbs. This sent speculation into overdrive. Who you got?
Who's bigger than Powerhouse Hobbs that Chris Jericho could be friends with?
Or, I guess, past enemies, like the Goldberg pitch is based on a rivalry.
Yeah,
but,
this is true. I mean,
I got one for you.
Go on.
Well, it's the Paul White show.
There you go.
He could get the old band back, get the Jerry Show band back together. Is
good.
Is this like the dawning of a new era where 2009/10/11 WWE has never been mined for nostalgia? So back we go. Like, well, AEW doing the guest host era soon or something like that. Like just this one period of time that no one's like, you can skip that if you want. Like even on Raw's own like retrospectives, they don't like. You got anything from 09? No. Yeah. I could see. Big Show.
I mean, they could redo the Big Show Mark Henry Daniel Bryan feud in AEW.
Yeah. AEW has not yet done the exploding ring superplex.
This is true.
Like Powerhouse Hobbs and Wardlow should have been that.
Yeah.
But Powerhouse Hobbs like superplex in the Big Show. I'm into it.
And game.
Are we settling on Paul White?
Yeah,
I love how this happened. I kind of hate it. And last but not least, a nice one, a bit of nostalgia, and I'm sure lots of people in the comments will have their own version of this one. We have a question from @SFSVHS. Easy for me to say. And by the way, if you heard any of these questions also earlier this week, I apologise for mine into the same
we don't
section.
pay attention to what the other people do.
Yeah, it's with apologies, but it means you get two answers. The question is, what is one single wrestling moment you would pick to witness for the first time again? I guess that could be live or on telly or whatever.
Either or, probably in terms of like the fandom at the time and how just goddamn excited I was at the time to revisit or relive the Mick Foley winning the belt. Because it was like, it was obviously Mick Foley was my guy, but like just the pure chaos of Raw in those days, and like not knowing what the hell was going to happen, and then the Austin pop and coming out and Foley winning, it was absolutely magical. And I remember running around my living room like a crazy person, going mad for that. So that'd be quite a good one to revisit.
I find that like it's that Andy Bernard thing from The Office, isn't it? Where like I wish somebody would tell you about the good times when you're still in them. And like wrestling's a nightmare for that because it's amazing. You live it, you go to sleep. sleep, you wake up the next day, and then about 5 years' time, somebody like puts the footage on Twitter or whatever. That was the best. That was the best it was ever going to get. And then you never know when the next best is coming around. For years, I held on to the golden era of NXT between like sort of 2014 and maybe 2016.
Yep.
Like Triple H has done such a great job for me personally as a fan in WWE that I'm pretty good for like WWE nostalgia stuff, but only very recently, because somebody made an edit of Seth Rollins' entrance for Cody Rhodes with CM Punk being the surprise guy from WrestleMania 38. I was drawn back to CM Punk's first dance yet again, and I watched that footage and I was up, it would have been 3 o'clock in the morning UK time, and it was just this perfect build of, you know he's coming, but they haven't had to say his name, so the 99% of knowing and the 1% of doubt is what makes such tension. And the feeling of Punk walking back out on the stage wasn't just the release of the 7 years he'd been gone and the euphoria of that. It was the relief that he was there and that you weren't even being trolled. You remember all the fantasy booking about it being MJF coming out of the music or when's he going to show? If he does turn up, how are they going to do it? It was just, oh my God, it's happening right now. I'm shaking, I'm fizzing, all the like synapses are firing. It's raw because he's gone. I think like if he turns up back in WWE, maybe less so in Impact, but certainly if he turns up on like a grander stage, it'll feel okay again. But right now I'm watching that with, considering how recent it is, with too many feelings of what could have been.
Yeah, absolutely fair. I remember watching that clip, the entrance, like 20 times that day, like so many times.
Huge numbers.
It's got stupid numbers, and that will just be people just going, that was amazing, let's watch it again. That was amazing, let's watch it again. And it was absolutely incredible. And like, if you could shoot like, there's probably like one moment in wrestling that if you like, can I be in that building?
Oh,
that would be at least in the top 3, if not the number 1.
Yeah, that's Chicago Fire. Look,
just the anticipation of waiting for the music to hit, and they played it so perfectly on the show, of just silence for like a minute or two, just letting the crowd fizz until it hits. It was so good.
From one Phil, if you're watching, listen to this, Phil, and come back.
Come back, Phil.
We don't mind where you go, but please come back. I mean, especially when we talk about repeat watchings on YouTube.
Hello.
Watch this video again. And watch this one that's in this box between us, I'm told, sometimes.
Yeah, somewhere.
And we'll see you soon.